First off, I want to say Mazel Tov to IJS for holding these recovery meditations. Thank you for these quarterly opportunities to shine a light on how mindfulness and Jewish thought dovetails with recovery principles and shining a light on this issue. I come here today wearing 3 hats. 1, as an advisory council member of the Jewish Addiction Awareness Network. 2, as the CEO of Bamidbar, an organization dedicated to youth and young adult mental health in the Jewish community. And 3, as an individual whose family has been deeply impacted by substance use disorder over the last 20 years. This issue is near and dear to my heart. Over the last 3,000 years, Jewish tradition has explored the question, what does it mean to live well? There is so much in our tradition that speaks to mental health and well-being, and it can be such a resource to support individuals through their recovery process. As Rabbi Paul Steinberg said in his book, Recovery, 12 Steps in Jewish Spirituality, my Judaism is not separate from my addiction and recovery, but integrated into it. Thank you, IJS, for creating a space where we can explore that intersection of Jewish spirituality and recovery. We'll share in the chat dates for the 3 more recovery meditations that will be taking place this year with IJS and Jewish Addiction Awareness Network. I also encourage you to check out JAAN's website. We're an aggregator of resources and provide a space for information and connection around addiction recovery in the Jewish community. As we prepare for Passover, there are 2 blogs on the JAAN website focused on Passover and recovery, which we will also share in the chat, along with information about an upcoming virtual Serenity Shabbat service, which will focus on addiction awareness and the wisdom of Jewish tradition as it relates to the spiritual practice of recovery. Thank you again, IJS, for this partnership with the Jewish Addiction Awareness Network.
Thank you so much, Jory. I really appreciate it. We really value this partnership with the Jewish Addiction Awareness Network and the opportunity to highlight the overlap between many of the principles of Jewish mindfulness meditation and principles of 12-step recovery as well. And that's what we hope to do today. So let's get to it, friends. This week, as has been mentioned earlier this week, we wrap up the reading on the Shabbat. We wrap up the reading of the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus, and with a double portion, a parshat by Yakel Pikude. And basically, big picture, these Torah portions describe the actual construction of the Mishkan, the wilderness tabernacle or sanctuary that is created that represents the divine presence in and among the people. The parsha begins with kind of an inverse of the instructions that Moses has received about how the Mishkan is to be built, which culminates in a description of Shabbat. In other words, when Moses receives the instructions about the Mishkan, he gets all the details and it ends with a description of Shabbat. And then that story gets flipped around when Moses relays the instruction to the people, and he begins with Shabbat and then goes on to describe how the Mishkan is to be constructed, the materials, the architecture, the elements of it, and so on and so forth. I want to point that out because it's just a beautiful description of how Shabbat takes precedence. And we each day here in this daily sit have an opportunity to bring our awareness into this Shabbat mode of being. Shabbat represents that mode of simply being with things as they are in the moment, whereas the building of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, represents our role, our human role as co-creators with the divine in building this world, and in a way that makes the divine manifest in it in some way. And the two engage in an interplay, as we discussed yesterday, actually, with Rabbi Daniel Raphael Silverstein. So I'm going to share on my screen briefly just to highlight a couple of lines from this week's Torah portion, and also to and thanks to Jet, if you would share the link to this in the chat as well. So one of the elements of the tabernacle is the building of the menorah, which we're all familiar with, of course, from Hanukkah. But the menorah that is in the tabernacle is a 7-branched candelabrum. And it's described here, the actual building of it is described in this way. I'm just going to read the English for the sake of time, but I'm going to highlight the Hebrew here. He made the menorah of pure gold The Hebrew is zahav tahor, pure gold. Miksha asa et menorah. Of miksha, I translated here as hammered work. He made the menorah, its base, its shaft, its cups, its knobs, its flowers. Mimena hayu. So there are these different elements of the menorah. There's the central shaft of the menorah. There's the branches of the menorah. There are the cups and knobs at the end of those branches, and then flowers, which kind of decorated the menorah. And then the next verse is that there were 6 branches coming out of its sides, 3 on each side, 3 out of one side, and 3 branches out of the other side. So the menorah is just symbolically, of course, has a lot of representational power. But I wanted to highlight this idea, which I think is very significant, that the way the menorah was constructed was of hammered work, and the fact that everything came out of this one piece. Later, when it's actually described how the menorah was lit, and in Numbers, Rashi says this about this word, which I highlighted here, miksha. And this is his comment on what does that word miksha, which is translated as beaten work. Rashi says there was a block weighing a talent of gold, and the one who made the menorah beat it with a hammer and cut away with a chisel in order that its branches might be made to spread out as they should do. And it was not formed of separate pieces made into a whole by joining them together. In other words, this is one piece of gold that was kind of formed into different elements. And it was not created by taking different elements and putting them together. We have this Latin phrase that is descriptive of American society, e pluribus unum, out of many, one. This is a teaching in our Torah portion that kind of describes that the Jewish way of understanding diversity is that it emerges out of oneness, out of unity, that it is not a matter of taking diversity and creating oneness out of it, but that it has to do with a fundamental awareness of our inextricable, unavoidable, inevitable interconnectedness. And I want to connect this with 2 of the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, of all recovery programs. The traditions, of course, are different than the steps, but these are guiding principles for how Alcoholics Anonymous traditionally is operated and 12-step programs operate. I'm struck in particular by the first 2 of these that I'm going to share here. It says that our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery, individual recovery depends upon AA or substitute, whatever recovery area is relevant, depends upon unity, having a sense of being part of a commonality. Second, which I think is also quite powerful and reflective as well, resonant with this teaching that we get from Torah, is that for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as God may express God's self in our group conscience. One authority, a loving God. In other words, the unity is the unity that guides the group purpose is a loving God, however one understands that term. You can substitute divine, the sacred, whatever, whatever term might be resonant for you. A loving God, as God may express God's self through our group conscience. And just to add on here, our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. Or the leaders serve that ultimate authority, a loving God. So I'm going to stop there. I bring that here just to say that I think one of the themes that emerges from this Torah portion, and one of the guiding themes of recovery, is this awareness of a commonality. One of the powerful things in 12-step recovery, of course, is when recovering addicts realize that they're not alone in their struggle, that they're part of something larger than themselves. And that principle guides all of the aspects of recovery, an awareness of not being alone and of being fundamentally connected in some way. That's a theme that I think emerges in the Torah portion and in these principles of recovery as seen in the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, at least as describing it there. So I want to invite us today for our meditation to bring our awareness to not our differences, but our commonality, our connection. So if you're not on a gallery view right now, I want to invite you just to take a moment and switch to gallery view. And not everyone, of course, feels comfortable being on camera. I'm also, frankly, honestly, I'm rarely on gallery view when I'm on these daily sits. And just take a moment to scroll through. If you're not on camera, that's fine. But if you are open to turning on your camera for a moment, that's great. We have a group of people, hi. We have a group of people who come here every day for a common purpose. And I frequently like to say as we're beginning, well, we're all in our different places, but really what gives, and all of these meditations are recorded and they're posted and people might make use of them. But there is something very different about doing it at the same time with people who have come together for a common purpose. This is true in the recovery world. It's true in the world of any kind of spiritual practice, which basically is what recovery is. It's a spiritual practice. And so I want to invite us to take in the sense of connection, not of making a connection, but of pre-existing connection. That's really the teaching of that Torah portion, is that the connection is pre-existent. We're just recognizing a connection that's already there versus making a connection. And there's a distinction there to be made. So as you scroll through and you see the faces, smiling or not smiling, doesn't matter. Just take a moment to remember not being alone, really is what it comes down to. None of us is alone. And you can keep it on gallery view if you'd like. And if that's helpful for you as an anchor to come back to that intention, really the suggestion for our practice. And we're going to go into about 10 minutes of silent meditation with a little bit of guidance. If you're not familiar, just a little bit of guidance to help us settle. So I invite you to shift again, as I mentioned earlier, into Shabbat mode. Unplug and choose an anchor, whether it's your breath or for some might be your body. Sensations in the body might be the sensation of whatever you're sitting on, the sensation of feeling the support of the floor. Just locate yourself where you are. Might be the breath, I said it, might be sensation, it might be sound, just the soundscape where you are, the ambient noise in your room or from the street or from nature. Something that can bring you back to the present moment when your mind drifts away, starts thinking about something from the past or what you've got next on your agenda for today or in the future. As that will happen, and then we just want to notice the mind drifting away and we practice tshuva, return, by coming back to the anchor, to the intention. It's as simple as that. Setting intention, drifting away, returning, rinse and repeat. But as we do that, I want to invite us today to also try to bring our awareness to everyone who's here on this meditation set, as if we were each branches of that menorah made of a single block of gold. Might look like we're separate and apart from each other, but actually we're not at all. We're fundamentally connected to a single block of gold. And we can imagine that single block of gold as representing a loving God as you understand God. We are connected in love. There might be resistance. There might be an inclination to drift away from that awareness. And we can honor the resistance, not fight it, not judge it, but just note it and come back. And in recovery, of course, there's a phrase, fake it until you make it. So you might try out just staying with that phrase, a loving God, however you want to understand God, or substitute whatever language you want, to experience love flowing through you and among us, connecting us like gold. Let's sit together. If your mind has drifted away, just a gentle reminder to come back to your anchor. Come back to just noticing the breath entering and leaving your body. We're noticing the aliveness in your body itself, or sensation, or the sound right now. And bringing your awareness back to being part of this menorah of many branches, of a single piece of crafted gold, connected by love. we begin to bring our sit to a close, staying with the breath, staying with the sensation, staying with sound. And with that blessing here, that those who experience loneliness, alienation among us and in this world, be blessed with an awareness of a sense of loving connection that permeates all of creation, including ourselves, and that we might be ambassadors, messengers, carriers of that message of loving connection, loving and healing connection for all who are in need. And I invite you to experience that sense of loving God by putting your hand over your heart space, if you like, and offer yourself a little bit of love. And just close by sharing with you this poem by the poet Jane Hirschfield about making manifest the underlying interconnectedness of life. I'll share that as well, so you can see the words. There are names for what binds us. Strong forces, weak forces. Look around, you can see them. The skin that forms in a half-empty cup, nails rusting into the places they join, joints dovetailed on their own weight. The way things stay so solidly wherever they've been set down. And gravity, scientists say, is weak. And see how the flesh grows back across the wound with a great vehemence, more strong than the simple untested surface before. There's a name for it on horses when it comes back darker and raised. Proud flesh, as all flesh is proud of its wounds, wears them as honors given out after battle, small triumphs pinned to the chest. And when two people have loved each other, see how it is like a scar between their bodies, stronger, darker, and proud, how the black cord makes of them a single fabric that nothing can tear or mend. And we close and seal our practice by offering those of you who are in mourning or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in the Kaddish, to do so and put the name or names of those who are honoring today in the chat now. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, if you're able to stay present and offer your presence as being part of a minyan of comfort, a way of really manifesting that sense of connection, of supporting with and being with those who are in mourning, who I invite to join me by rising in body or in spirit to recite the words. And thanks to Jet for sharing the words on the screen. If you're reciting Kaddish, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitkadal, Yikadash Shemei Rabbah, Yama Yuma Kirite Yamlich Mochite, Chayechon, Yomechon, Haye Dohol Yisrael, Shalom Bisman Karib Bimru Amen, Shmei Rabba Barach Bishmat Yisrael, Bishmat Bitador, Bitahet, Halal, Shvei, Bisha, Shalom, Yikol, Bechata, Beshirata, Bishvachata, Benechemata, Ba'amran, Be'omad, Shlomo, Rabba, Shemayel, Eilim, Aleinu, All Yisrael, Oseh Shalom, Kuya Esek Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael,
Puya say shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'al Kol Yisvei Tavel, V'imru Amen.
Amen.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank our partners at the Jewish Addiction Awareness Network and Jory Hanselman Meshach for joining us today. Grateful for that partnership, and grateful as well to Jet Bachman for holding our space as always with grace and skill today. Thank you so much, Jet. And of course, thanks to all of you for being here today. I'm happy to stay on and do my best to respond to any questions, or just if you'd like to share reflections on your experience today, happy to elaborate on that. If you'd like to just use the time to continue to stay in with your sitting practice, you're more than welcome to use the time to do that. We're happy for you to do that. And if you're leaving us now, some of you are, just invite you to join us tomorrow when Rebecca Schisler of the IJS faculty will be leading us, as she normally does beautifully, to lead us to sit into Shabbat together at our usual time, 12:30 Eastern tomorrow. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow with Rebecca to prepare for Shabbat together, as we like to say, to set our inner Shabbat table tomorrow at our usual time. Betsy, welcome. I see this first timer, Betsy. I'm so glad you're here. So I'm just going to scroll. If anybody has a question, I see there's a question from Jen, the author of the poem. I'll share it again. Maybe I'll read it again in a bit. It's a poem by the wonderful poet JAAN Hirschfield, who I believe actually was interviewed recently. Heard an interview with her. We at IJS are big fans of JAAN Hirschfield. I believe she was interviewed by either Tammy Simon or Krista Tippett on one of the On Being podcasts. Can check that out. Okay, thanks, Lori. Always great questions. My question is about the potential intentionality of the divine, of God. Meditation, oops, can't read it. A strong feeling that God wants us to be well, but does God want? Just sit with that question a moment, Lori. That's okay. Well, if I'm understanding the question right, you can tell me if I'm not. There is this idea, and I guess this really relates to also to, we can relate it directly to recovery. Since in the third step of the 12 steps of recovery, the recovering addict makes a decision to turn one's will and one's life over to the care of God. Basically to surrender the will of one's ego to the divine will. So there, and in Judaism, we have the idea that there is a divine will. The way I think about that is, first of all, that will is unknowable. It's a mystery, but that there is a kind of direction or flow to that energy, that loving energy field of awareness that we can connect with through awareness and awareness of awareness. And part of that, I guess, is the question of love. Is that energy? Can we describe it as a loving energy that we can experience? As my colleague Sam Feinsmith likes to say, and I've really learned this from him, you really just have to test it out in your own experience. Same advice is given to people in recovery, by the way. Also, of course, just come and see, take what works and leave the rest, which is to say, that is there a resonance? Is there a resonance in that sense of intention, that this divine flow is impelling us towards healing, towards connection, towards justice. It manifests in these midot, these qualities, soul qualities that we have, which have a moral element to them. So I don't know. I hope that's responsive to your question. Does God want? Think about that as that kind of energy that's moving in a direction that we try to align ourselves with, and loosen our hold on our ego enough to trust that flow. Yeah. Is there a divine will? Well, thanks, Jet, for putting the link to the poem. Oh yes, I want to. I know Rabbi Ilan Glazer is still here, but I wanted to give a shout out to him and his organization, Our Jewish Recovery, which is basically a Facebook-based group. Thanks, Rabbi Ilan, for putting the information in the chat for that. I don't know if people saw that or not, but just want to let people know that's really a wonderful resource, recovery resource. Karen, if you don't mind, would you mind putting your question in the chat if possible? We don't generally unmute people, but I'm very happy to see what's on your mind there. And I'm just scrolling up to see if there are any other questions. Karen, if you're able to put it in the chat, that'd be great. Oh, while you're doing that, I'll keep an eye out. I guess I'd like to reiterate that teaching from the Parsha, which to me is like a very powerful thing, and raises an interesting question about the distinction between understanding, about the relationship between unity, connection, and diversity. And for me, it's extremely powerful and important that our tradition represents the idea of diversity emerging out of oneness that is reflected like light refracting through a prism, revealing the rainbow. The rainbow is a very, really powerful representation of that. We get it in the tradition that at Sinai, this is a rabbinic tradition, that God's voice, as it were, refracted into a way that each individual heard and hears that voice in its own unique way. So it's a single voice that is refracted, if sound could be refracted, in a way that each of us hears Torah as only we can hear it, informed by our experience and our being in some way. And that's the same idea as the menorah, representing, with its branches representing diversity, the 7 branches representing diversity, the idea of like there being 70 nations in the world representing universality, all of which stem from a single source. Which is, and it's interesting to me that American society has this, kind of flips that around to see oneness and connection emerging out of diversity versus the other way around. Why is the menorah made of gold and not, say, silver or bejeweled? Is it so? Thank you, Laurie. So is it so we remain malleable, meltable, soft, and shining like gold as we connect with one another? I don't have an answer to that one. I don't know if there's a different quality. Maybe somebody here knows in terms of the metals, whether gold has a different quality than silver in that way. It does have the quality of light. Okay. I think I'm going to close just by rereading this poem by Jane Herschel, which I really like so much. And I hope the essence of today's practice, which is about that kind of awareness of connection that is always present, can stay with us as we go through our day. So I'll just end by sharing again and Jet, if you have the link to the Dropbox link, that would be great. Poems, of course, always benefit from being read and reread. The title of the book it comes from, by the way, is Of Gravity and Angels, for what binds us. There are names for what binds us. Strong forces, weak forces. Look around, you can see them. The skin that forms in a half-empty cup, nails rusting into the places they join, joints dovetailed on their own weight. The way things stay so solidly wherever they've been set down. And gravity, scientists say, is weak. See how the flesh grows back across a wound with a great vehemence, more strong than the simple untested surface before. There's a name for it on horses when it comes back darker and raised. Proud flesh, as all flesh is proud of its wounds, wears them as honors given out after battle, small triumphs pinned to the chest. And when people have loved each other, see how it is like a scar between their bodies, stronger, darker, and proud, how the black cord makes of them a single fabric that nothing can tear or mend. Okay, friends, wonderful to be with you as always, and look forward to see you tomorrow to end the week with Rebecca Schisler at our usual time. Grateful to spend this time of practice with you, and I hope it informs the rest of your day in a good way. Thanks so much to Jet and to each of you for being here. Many blessings. Have a wonderful rest of your day.